The ground shook under the heavy steps of war machines. Smoke rose into the sky and the air was filled with the sound of plasma fire. The planet of Asterion 4 was supposed to be rich in minerals, but now it was nothing more than a battlefield between two races, humans and Thalrians. Captain Elias Ward pressed his back against a ruined wall, his chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. His squad had been scattered when enemy fire ripped through their line. Dust clung to his armor and his rifle was almost out of charge. He was alone now, cut off from command. He peered through the cracks of the broken wall. Across the battlefield, towering figures moved. The Thalrians, armored in scaled suits that shimmered like steel blue stone. They were strong, taller than any human, and their voices carried like thunder when they shouted orders. Elias had been told they were monsters. He had been trained to see them as enemies who cared for nothing but conquest. Yet war had taught him one truth. Both sides bled and both sides mourned. A sudden crash broke his thoughts. A blast struck nearby, throwing dirt and fire into the air. Elias coughed, rolling to his knees. His comm device buzzed with static. Useless. He could not call for help. He needed to move. The battlefield was no place to stand still. He sprinted across the ruined street, leaping over broken metal beams and shattered glass. His boots hit the ground hard, but he kept moving. He had one goal now: survive until he found his squad. But then he heard something strange. Not the roar of soldiers, not the crack of weapons, something smaller, softer. Crying. Elias froze. His instincts told him to ignore it, to focus on escape. But the sound tugged at him. It was the cry of children. Slowly, carefully, he followed the sound. He passed a collapsed structure that once looked like a school or temple. The walls were burned black, but deep inside he saw movement. He entered, rifle raised, heart pounding, and then he saw them. 5 small Thalrian children, their skin marked with faint patterns of blue and silver, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They huddled together, trembling. They could not have been older than human school children. Their clothes were torn and dust covered their faces. Elias lowered his weapon slowly. His mind raced. These were not soldiers. These were the young of his enemy. One of the children gasped when they saw him. Another tried to hide behind a broken pillar. Fear filled their faces, but no weapons were in their hands. Only small, trembling claws. Elias's breath caught in his throat. For a moment he remembered his own younger brother back on Earth, laughing and chasing a ball in the streets of their old neighborhood. War had taken that memory away from him, but seeing these children brought it back. Before he could speak, the ground shook again. A blast struck the building. The ceiling groaned and stone began to fall. Without thinking, Elias dropped his rifle and ran forward. A huge slab of concrete broke loose from above, falling straight toward the children. He threw himself between them and the collapse. The impact was heavy. Pain shot through his body as dust filled the air. He braced his arms, holding up the slab just enough for the children to crawl out from under it. His muscles burned, but he refused to let go. "Move!" he shouted, even though they did not understand his words. His tone was enough. The children scrambled away to safety. The weight crushed down harder and Elias cried out. His armor groaned, sparks flying where metal bent. Just when he thought he would be buried, another blast shook the ruins, and the slab shifted to the side. Elias fell onto his back, coughing hard, his body aching. The children stared at him wide-eyed. They had expected death, but this human had saved them. More noise came from outside. Thalrian soldiers, their heavy steps drawing near. Elias reached for his rifle, but his arm refused to move. He was too weak. The soldiers entered the ruins. Their tall shadows fell over the children and over Elias. Their eyes glowed in the dust-filled air. One of the warriors aimed a weapon at him, but the children cried out, rushing forward. They stood between Elias and their own people, their small arms spread wide. Their alien words were filled with panic, but the meaning was clear. They were defending him. The Thalrian soldiers froze, shocked. They looked at the children, then at the wounded human beneath them. For a moment, no one moved. Finally, the soldiers lowered their weapons. One of them spoke into a communicator, his voice sharp but calm. The order was clear: capture, not kill. Elias's vision blurred as pain overtook him. He felt strong hands lifting him, carrying him away. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was the children's glowing eyes watching him with something unexpected. Not fear. Elias awoke slowly, his head pounding and his body aching. The light was soft and pale, filtered through tall windows that curved like the inside of a shell. The room smelled of herbs and something unfamiliar, metallic but clean. He tried to move, but pain shot through his arms and legs. Easy, a calm voice said. Elias looked up. A Thalrian healer, tall and graceful, hovered over him, hands glowing faintly. The blue and silver patterns on their skin shimmered with every movement. Elias froze, unsure if he should resist. He remembered the battlefield, the blast, and the children. Were they safe? Were they with him, or had he failed? They are safe, the healer said, as if reading his mind. The young are unharmed. Elias blinked. Relief washed over him, followed quickly by confusion. Safe? The Thalrians were supposed to be his enemies, yet someone had spared him and the children. Before he could speak, a door at the far end of the room opened. Light spilled in, revealing the most majestic creature he had ever seen. Queen Serathia, she, was taller than any human, her frame elegant but strong. Her glowing eyes held both authority and something softer, curiosity. Her skin shimmered with patterns that shifted subtly as she moved, like flowing water. She carried herself with the dignity of a ruler, but there was a tension about her. "Captain Elias Ward," she said, her voice low and commanding. "You have risked your life for my young." "Why?" Elias tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He coughed. I couldn't let them die. They're children. They didn't choose this war." The queen studied him closely. Her eyes seemed to pierce into him, searching for something beyond words. "Most humans fight only for themselves," she said. "You fought for others, your enemies. That is rare." Elias looked down. He had been trained to survive, to follow orders, to protect his own people. But this felt different. He did not even think about loyalty or war. He only knew he could not leave the children to die. Serathia stepped closer. Her movements were precise, almost ceremonial. "Your people have caused us pain. You are my enemy, yet you protected what is mine. Why?" "I don't like killing children," Elias said simply. "Even if they are Thalrian, war shouldn't take everything. Some lives should be safe, no matter what side they're on." There was silence. The queen's advisors, standing behind her in polished armor, shifted uneasily. Some of them whispered in their language, sharp words that Elias did not understand. He felt their judgment heavy like stones. Serathia raised a hand, silencing them. "I am curious about your kind," she said. "You call yourselves humans. You show courage and mercy. Can both exist in one creature?" Elias shrugged weakly. "I don't know if it's courage. I just do what I think is right." The queen studied him longer, then spoke in a voice softer than before. "You will recover here. You will be treated with honor, not punishment. No human has ever earned that in my halls." The healer nodded and began moving toward Elias again, preparing more of the glowing herbs and devices to mend his broken body. Elias tried to sit up, but the healer gently pressed him back down. "You are strong, but your body is not ready. Rest." For the first time in hours, Elias allowed himself to relax. He closed his eyes and felt the healer's hands work, healing small wounds and easing the pain. The world outside the walls of this alien fortress could wait. After some time, he opened his eyes to find the children gathered near the doorway. They looked different than when he had first seen them, less frightened, more curious. One small child approached and placed a tiny hand on the edge of his arm. Elias smiled weakly. "They call you Protector," one whispered. Elias's eyes widened. The children's words were not like human words, but he understood the meaning perfectly. "Yes," he said quietly. "Protector." The queen watched this silently. She made a soft sound, almost like a hum. Then she stepped forward. "Captain Ward, your actions have created a dilemma for me. My people demand honor. Some say your death is required, yet my heart tells me otherwise." Elias looked at her, confused. "I don't understand." "You saved what was innocent," Sarathia said. "That is a rare quality. I do not know if I admire you or distrust you, but I will not allow you to die while you have my favor." Her words were strange to him, but he understood the meaning. They were offering him life. Not as a prisoner, not as a captive, but as someone respected. Days passed, and Elias remained in the queen's care. He learned more about the Thalrians, their culture, their fears, and their hopes. He realized they were not monsters. They were beings shaped by war, just like humans. They had families, children they loved, and homes they wanted to protect. Elias saw the children laugh, play, and sometimes argue. They reminded him of Earth, of neighborhoods he had once known. In their innocence, he found hope. He also realized how fragile life could be, no matter the planet or species. One Aftion, the Qui. Elias woke to soft sunlight spilling through the tall, curved windows of the Thalrian fortress. His body still ached, but the pain was less now, thanks to the healer's care. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of machinery and the occasional distant sound of battle beyond the walls. The children were already awake, their small forms darting through the hallways with laughter that echoed like music. They had grown more confident since the day he saved them, and Elias found himself smiling despite the bruises and fatigue. A voice called from the doorway. "Captain Ward." It was Sarathia. Her presence was calm, but commanding, as always. She gestured for him to follow. Elias rose carefully, moving slowly, still adjusting to his weakened muscles. They walked through long corridors carved with intricate designs that told the history of Thalrian civilization. Scenes of past battles, celebrations, and leaders adorned the walls. Elias studied them, fascinated. Despite their alien form, the stories felt familiar. They were tales of survival, courage, and unity, much like human history. Sarathia spoke softly. "You have stayed among us, protected our young, and shown our people a side of humanity they did not expect. Yet you belong to another world. Tell me, Captain, what drives your kind to fight for others, even enemies?" Elias paused. He searched for the right words, feeling the weight of her question. "I don't know if all humans are like me," he said finally. "But many of us, we care for more than just ourselves. We fight to protect families, friends, and even strangers if we think it's the right thing to do. Sometimes it is the only thing that makes life worth living." The queen nodded, her glowing eyes thoughtful. "Curious, you speak of morality, loyalty, and courage as if they are natural forces like gravity. Yet humans are not the strongest, nor the most numerous. And still you risk your life for them. Why?" Elias swallowed hard. "Because life is precious. And because I remember what it feels like to be helpless. I could not let the children die." Sarathia was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Perhaps that is why your presence here has caused unrest among my people. Some of my advisors call for your punishment for showing weakness to our enemies, but others wonder if there is value in your ways. That is why I have kept you alive. Your choices challenge the assumptions of war." Elias looked down. "I didn't think about that, I just acted." The queen's lips curved slightly. "Action often carries consequences beyond thought. You are learning, Captain, that war is not only fought with weapons, it is fought with choices." As they walked, they passed a hall where the children played, with simple toys made of wood and metal. The small alien forms ran around, laughing, arguing, and then quickly reconciling. Elias felt a pang in his chest. Reminders of Earth, of children he had once known, now lost to war and time. One child, smaller than the others, ran to him and handed him a tiny carved figure. "Protector," the child said. Elias took it carefully, turning it over in his hands. The figure was crude, but the effort was genuine. "Thank you," he said softly. He looked up at Sarathia. The queen observed silently, letting the moment pass without comment. Days turned into a week. Elias learned the routines of the fortress. The guards, the meals, the way the Thalrians communicated and worked. He discovered that the children had been hidden from the front lines because they were too young to fight, but now they saw him as a protector. Whenever danger approached, they would huddle close to him, eyes wide but trusting. Despite his growing bond with them, Elias could not forget humanity. He wondered how his own people viewed him. Did they believe he had been killed? Had they already buried him in memory? Or were they still searching for him? One day, as he walked the outer walls of the fortress, he saw distant plumes of smoke on the horizon. Battles were still raging. He clenched his fists. The war had not ended, and neither had the pain it caused. Yet here within the fortress he had learned something new. Compassion and understanding could survive even in the heart of conflict. Sarathia approached him, her movements silent. "You are changing," she said. "Not in body. That will heal, but in spirit. You see our people differently than others. You understand them as more than enemies." Elias nodded. "I had to. They are not enemies to these children. And I cannot forget what I saw today. How small acts can change lives." The queen's gaze softened, a rare expression for one so often surrounded by authority. "And yet, Captain, you walk between two worlds, yours and mine. You are neither fully human nor fully Thalrian. You are something else. Something new." Elias thought about her words. He had survived the battlefield, saved lives, and now found himself respected by those he was taught to fight. Yet he still longed for home, for his people, for the world he had left behind. But he also knew something else. His time among the Thalrians had shown him that courage was not measured by victories alone. It was measured by choices, by the willingness to act even when no one else would. Later, he sat with the children in a quiet courtyard. Their laughter floated around him, light and musical. He taught them simple games, and they taught him small tricks of their world. In those moments, he felt a fragile sense of peace, though the war still waited beyond the walls. One of the older children spoke softly. "Protector, why do you fight for us?" Elias looked at the small face, blue and silver patterns glowing, faintly in the sunlight. He felt warmth in his chest. "Because someone must," he said simply. "Because I know what it means to care, and because I hope that one day no one will have to fight to survive." The children nodded, their eyes trusting and bright. Elias realized that he had found a purpose greater than survival. Here, in this alien fortress, he was more than a soldier. He was a bridge between two worlds, a protector not just of life, but of hope. And yet the thought of the battlefield and his human comrades never left him. He knew that one day he might have to leave this fragile peace behind and face the war once more. But for now, he would stand between the children and the dangers that lurked outside, earning trust, building understanding, and showing that humanity's courage extended far beyond its own kind. For the first time, Elias felt that the choices he made could matter to more than just one side. They could change the story of the war itself, and maybe one day, even the future of two worlds. The fortress was quiet, but tension lingered in every hall. Outside, the sounds of distant battle reminded everyone that the war had not ended. Within the palace, Queen Sarathia paced slowly, her glowing eyes reflecting both thought and worry. Elias watched from a corner, still weak, but growing stronger. With each passing day, Sarathia's advisors gathered in the grand hall, their armored forms rigid, faces stern. "Your Majesty," one began, voice sharp, "keeping a human alive after he saved our children is dishonorable. He is an enemy. Tradition demands his execution. Sarathia's gaze swept over them, unyielding. And yet, she said calmly, this human has shown courage that many of our warriors lack. He risked life for children he did not know. He fought not for conquest, but for protection. Do you not see the difference? Another advisor frowned. With respect, Majesty, he is clever enough to manipulate your sympathy. He could betray us at any moment. He is still human. Sarathia turned her glowing eyes on Elias. Captain Ward, your actions are under scrutiny. My people debate your fate. You must understand you walk a dangerous path. Elias nodded slowly. I understand, Your Majesty. I only did what I thought was right. I did not think of reward or honor. The Queen inclined her head slightly. That is precisely what confuses them. To act without personal gain, that is foreign to their thinking, and yet it is the choice that saves lives. For days, Sarathia deliberated. Her advisors argued, some calling for strict punishment, others quietly admiring the human's courage. The Queen found herself caught between duty to her people and respect for a life saved. Elias spent the time caring for the children, teaching them to read simple symbols and small games of logic. In their innocence, he saw hope. Their laughter reminded him why he had acted without thought for himself. He had been a soldier, trained to fight, but here he was something more, something greater than a fighter. Sarathia observed him silently. During these days, she watched how he moved among the children, how he comforted them after nightmares of war, and how he treated the smallest ones with patience. Slowly she realized that his actions were not weakness, but strength. One evening she called him to the central chamber. The room glowed softly with pale light, and the shadows of statues stretched across the walls. Elias stood at attention, though he was still weak from his injuries. You have changed my perspective, Captain Ward, Sarathia said. I expected fear, defiance, maybe even deception. But instead I see honesty, courage, and compassion. Elias bowed his head. Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what felt right. Sarathia walked closer. And yet your actions ripple farther than you imagine. The children speak of you as protector. Some adults whisper of your bravery. This human, my enemy, challenges the expectations of our entire society. Some call it a miracle, others, an abomination. Elias blinked, unsure how to respond. He had never thought of himself as a hero. He had only acted out of instinct, out of care for those who could not defend themselves. You have forced me to reconsider our traditions, Sarathia continued. Execution would satisfy honor, but it would kill. The horizon burned with the light of distant fires. Smoke rose from the outskirts of the system, carrying with it the acrid scent of war. Captain Elias Ward stood atop the fortress wall, scanning the approaching fleets. His human instincts told him this enemy was unlike any they had faced before, organized, relentless, and merciless. Beside him, Queen Sarathia's advisors murmured nervously. Some were still doubtful of Elias, still wary of a human commanding their forces. But the Queen's gaze never left him. She had placed her trust in him, and now that trust would be tested. Elias clenched his fists. We need to move quickly, he said. This force will not wait. They will strike hard, and if we are unprepared, they will break through our lines. Humans and Thalrians must work together. Every soldier, every defender counts. Sarathia nodded. You have the Council's permission to lead the combined defenses. Show them what your kind can do. The fortress buzzed with activity. Humans and Thalrians worked side by side, setting up barriers, checking weapons, and reinforcing weak points. Some humans hesitated at first, unsure of their alien allies. But Elias moved among them, giving instructions, offering reassurance, and showing that trust was possible even in the heart of war. By nightfall, the first wave of the enemy appeared. Their ships moved with precision, shadows against the stars, weapons glowing with deadly light. The fortress braced itself. Cannons roared, energy shields shimmered, and alarms echoed through every corridor. Elias took command from the central command hall, coordinating human and Thalrian squads. He gave clear orders, placing Thalarians at key points and humans in positions where their ingenuity could make the difference. Together, they created a defense that no single race could have achieved alone. The first skirmish hit hard. Enemy drones swept across the battlefield, firing indiscriminately. Thalarians unleashed plasma blasts, and humans countered with precision artillery. The air was thick with smoke, fire, and the sounds of battle. Yet Elias moved through it, like a calm eye in a storm. A group of enemy units broke through a weak point in the outer defense. Children's cries echoed in the distance. Elias rushed forward with a team of human and Thalarian soldiers. They fought back fiercely, using clever traps and tactics. At one point, a young Thalarian child ran into the open, crying for help. Elias did not hesitate. He charged forward, shielding the child with his body as enemy fire tore the ground around them. A sharp blast hit his shoulder, throwing him to the ground, but he held the child close until reinforcements arrived. The Queen watched from the command platform, her glowing eyes filled with a mix of awe and worry. Elias's actions inspired not only humans but Thalarians as well. Soldiers fought harder, moved faster, and risked more for one another. Even those who had doubted the human began to see the strength in his courage. Hours passed. The battle, raging from dusk into night. Explosions lit up the sky and the ground shook under repeated strikes. Despite injuries and exhaustion, Elias refused to stop. Every decision he made saved lives. Every command strengthened the defense. Then the enemy launched a massive attack on the central courtyard, the place where the children had been sheltered. Panic spread, but Elias did not falter. He rallied, a team, moving through smoke and fire, guiding both humans and Thalarians. He reached the children just as the first wave of attackers entered the courtyard. Using debris and quick thinking, he created cover, then led the children to safety. The young ones followed without hesitation, trusting the human who had protected them before. A Thalarian guard called out, "Captain, the bridge is under threat." Elias glanced at the enemy formation. "We hold it at all costs. Humans, flank left. Thalarians, support right. Keep the center secure." The battle intensified. Sparks flew as metal collided with energy blasts. Elias fought alongside the soldiers, striking down enemies with precision and skill. Every move he made, every risk he took sent a message. Humanity was more than just a fighting species. They were capable of courage, strategy, and mercy, even in the heart of chaos. The tide slowly turned. The combined forces of humans and Thalarians began to push the enemy back. The invaders, confused by the coordinated defense, faltered and retreated. Smoke and dust filled the air, but the fortress still stood. Elias fell to his knees, exhausted but alive. Around him, soldiers, human and Thalarian alike, cheered. Some of the Thalarians approached him with cautious smiles, nodding in respect. Even the Queen's advisors who had doubted him now acknowledged his value. Sarathia stepped forward, her glowing eyes meeting his. "Captain Ward," she said softly, "you have proven that courage and mercy are more powerful than mere weapons. You have saved my children, my people, and perhaps even the course of this war." Elias looked at her, breath heavy but determined. "I only did what I had to do. We are all stronger when we fight together, for the innocent, not just for ourselves." The Queen nodded. "Your words are wise, and your actions unforgettable. Your courage has inspired not only humans but Thalarians as well. Perhaps this is the beginning of something new, a path where trust and protection matter as much as strength." That night, the fortress was quiet for the first time in days. Fires burned low, and wounded soldiers were treated by healers. Elias walked among the children, checking that each one was safe. They smiled at him, trusting him without fear. He realized something profound. War could test every part of a being, but true courage was shown not in victories alone, but in selfless acts to protect life. And in this moment, he understood that humanity's greatest strength was its willingness to sacrifice for others, even enemies, even strangers. As he gazed at the stars, Elias made a silent promise. No matter what battles lay ahead, he would continue to protect the innocent. He would continue to lead, to fight, and to inspire. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, but now through courage and mercy, they had shown the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The rising threat had been met, and while danger still loomed, one truth was clear. Elias Ward, the human who took the blows for the young, had become a symbol of hope for two worlds. The dawn was pale, washing the fortress walls in soft light. After the long battle, silence hung over the landscape. The fires had burned low, smoke curling gently into the sky. Captain Elias Ward stood on the highest terrace, surveying the battlefield that had tested every ounce of courage he had. The enemy forces had retreated, but their presence still loomed like a shadow over the system. Elias knew this was not the end. Yet the unity of humans and Thalrians had sent a clear message. Courage and cleverness could triumph over brute force. Sarathia approached him, her glowing eyes scanning the horizon. "Captain Ward," she said, her voice calm but firm, "you have changed the course of this war. Your actions have shown that humanity's spirit is something we cannot ignore. You have saved not just lives, but hearts. You have inspired both, your people and mine." Elias nodded slowly, fatigue heavy on his body. "I only did what I had to do. The children, the innocents, they deserved protection. That is what mattered." She stepped closer. "And yet, by protecting them, you have reminded us all why life matters beyond strategy, orders, or conquest. Your humanity is a force that cannot be measured by weapons alone." The children, now safely clustered around the central courtyard, waved at him. Their small forms moved eagerly, and the youngest ran forward, calling him Protector. Elias smiled, crouching down to meet their eyes. "You're safe now," he said, voice soft. "We won't let anyone harm you again." They smiled and hugged him. In that simple gesture, Elias felt a warmth he had never experienced in battle, a sense of purpose that reached beyond fighting, beyond survival. Meanwhile, soldiers, Thalrian and human alike, moved among the ruins, tending to the wounded, repairing structures and securing resources. Elias observed them, noting the way they worked together, once enemies now united. He realized that this alliance, fragile as it might be, was stronger than any weapon. An alarm sounded suddenly. Scouts reported that a smaller contingent of enemy ships had returned, attempting a final strike. Elias did not hesitate. "Prepare the defenses," he shouted. "Humans and Thalrians together. Focus on strategy, not panic. We can stop them." The enemy ships advanced, but the combined forces of humans and Thalrians were ready. Using clever positioning, traps, and teamwork, they met each wave with precision. The invaders were forced back, disoriented by the unexpected coordination. Elias moved through the battlefield, guiding both sides. At one point, a bridge connecting two fortress walls began to collapse under fire. He sprinted across, pulling soldiers, human and Thalrian, to safety. Each action reinforced the lesson he had always believed. Courage was not measured by strength alone, but by the will to protect others. Finally, the enemy retreated completely, their forces scattered and broken. Cheers erupted across the fortress. Soldiers hugged one another, exhausted but alive. The children ran through the halls, laughing freely for the first time in days. Sarathia approached Elias again. "Captain Ward, your people may be young, but your spirit is unmatched. You have shown that humanity is capable of great courage, compassion, and strategy. Even in the face of death, you did not falter." Elias shook his head. "I was not alone. None of us were. Humans, Thalrians. We worked together. That is why we survived." She smiled, the faintest curve of perhaps